You have received the minutes from the May 2021 meeting and the May 26th Broadband Public Forum minutes. And so would you, I'll entertain a motion first for the approval of the May 2021 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's move on to the Broadband Public Forum minutes. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, it's passed. Let's consider first Resolution 1434. Mr. Bolus?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioners, I'd like to recognize Mark Walker, our Senior Vice President and CFO, to present you the consideration for second reading today.
Commissioners, you will recall last month at the May board meeting, the board approved the proposed budget for fiscal year 22 for all 4 utility systems. You will also recall that one of the funding recommendations for the FY22 water system budget was a 2% water rate increase, which is needed for next fiscal year and really over the course of our long-range plan to continue funding for our water system Century 2 programs and also for our water plant resiliency initiative. The board did adopt on first reading last month the proposed 2% water rate increase, and today we present it for your consideration on second and final reading. And Commissioners, I just have a brief presentation, just a few slides to remind you of some of the particulars of the proposed increase. And I guess if you go back in time to pre-pandemic, say January of 2020, we were actually at that time planning to have a 5% water rate increase to be effective in July of 2020, and then a 5% to be effective in July of 2021. As you'll recall, we eliminated the 5% rate increase for the current fiscal year, and due to some capital project deferrals and also savings from the recent water bond refinancing, we've been able to lower the 5% increase plan for next fiscal year to 2%. So if you go back 18 months, what was initially thought to be a total of 10% is now down to 2%. The proposed increase will raise the average residential water customer's monthly bill 65 cents from its current level of $27.95 to $28.60. And as a reminder, the average customer uses about 3,700 gallons of water per month. The increase is being applied solely to the usage or commodity rate, and there is no increase in the residential basic service charge. So truly, the impact on the customer's bill will be a function of how much water they use on a monthly basis. And we are proposing the increase to go into effect next month in July of 2021. And if so, it will first be reflected on customers' bills beginning in August of 2021. And then looking just at some of the residential bill impacts, you can see in the middle, I believe it's bolded. Be careful there. You can see the increase for the average customer at 65 cents, but I'll point out that slightly more than 50% of our residential customers use less than the system average, so they would see less than the increase of 65 cents. For example, if you look at, for those that use 1,500 gallons a month, which is about 15% of our customers on average, their increase would only be 20 cents on the monthly bill. And about a little over a third of our residential water customers would see less than a 35 cents or less increase as a result of the water rate adjustment.
But on our bills, it doesn't reflect gallons used.
That is correct.
I always get confused with that because there's another measure used.
It's hundreds of cubic feet, CCF. So if you say, how does that translate? Well, this would be 1 CCF, 100 cubic feet, 200 cubic feet, 300 cubic feet on that. So the average is 5 CCF, and that's a little over 3,700 gallons of water usage.
Hey, Mark, didn't we talk about changing that on our bill?
Yeah,
so that
which is a very
gallons-
good point. The resolution, in addition to adjusting the water rates to provide for the 2% increase, also includes language not only in the water residential, non-residential schedules, but also in wastewater residential and non-residential schedules that will allow for future billings to be in gallons as opposed to the current unit measurement CCF. And we just think that's a much easier unit of measurement for customers to understand. Now, that's not going to happen right away because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of programming and coding that would go along with that. And most likely, we would link that to when we actually upgrade or update our billing system, which might be a couple of years out. I honestly don't recall off the top of my head when that is scheduled to occur. But when that does happen, we would probably make that conversion. I think it'd be much easier.
So for the time being, we're still in CCF.
Still in CCF, yes. Which
I'll
we,
send my bill to you, then you can calculate it for me, all right? I'm talking, this is the last you got me.
Me too.
well, it is, and we gave Celeste this calculator.
Right.
All you got to do is take, if you see 2 CCF, just multiply it by 748, and that'll give you your number of gallons.
Mark, quick question. I do understand what it would take. Well, I don't completely understand, but I can imagine that trying to reprogram everything is going to be pretty complex and that's going to take a while. Could you, in the interim, look into just adding to the bill the line that tells you that equation?
Right.
How many CCFs in gallons so that people would be able to see that on the face of the bill?
Yeah, I don't see why that would be a problem, because especially in the new billing format that we have space to put messages and such. So I think that would be something fairly easy to
It might
do.
be a good interim step.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Agree with that.
Okay. So we do present Resolution 1434 on second and final reading for the water rate increase and for those other adjustments to allow for future billings to be in gallons.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. We have a second. Are there any members of the public who'd like to address the board on this resolution? Any more comments from the commissioners?
Just one small comment. I understand the refinancing and how we were able to lower those percentages from technically 10 to 2. When we talk about deferrals, are we pushing back major projects down the road and we'll have to come back at some point to refund those because we are doing these deferrals to lower the rate?
Yeah, in part, yes. We did make some adjustments in our capital plan and move some of the larger capital projects out a couple of years to help accomplish this. That's correct.
Okay. So at some point, we have to then come back and talk about how we pay for those capital projects, right?
That is correct. The outer rate increases in the plan have been adjusted slightly upward from from pre-pandemic levels,
Right.
which they were like all 5%. Now they're all 6% to help make up the difference. Yes, sir.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Askew.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson-Brown. Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Commissioner Worden.
Aye.
Resolution 1434 is passed on second reading.
Be interesting to see what the impact on rounded up is. If the increase gets you right over the dollar, then the rounded up's going up. But if you're pretty low below the dollar now, you won't even notice anything if you're rounding up. So it'll just be interesting to see if that has any impact. We'll consider resolutions 1439 and 1440 now, and we'll have one presentation for both.
Commissioners, over the past year, we've worked really hard at discussing the opportunity of doing a fiber division at KUB. And before Jamie Davis, our VP and assistant to the CTO, speaks, I want to say a few words about the efforts we have made. We have vetted this out very thoroughly. We've made had a lot of input along the way, and I hope after today's presentation you agree. But also one thing we've talked about a little bit, but we're going to talk about a lot more today, is the program that we're wanting to create to help low-income customers have internet. We have worked really closely with the city of Knoxville on this plan. It is a major step in the direction to help those folks who need it the most and to help pay for it. And so, we have worked really closely and have a great plan in place. And so, we're looking forward to having that funding source for years to come. So with that being said, I'll turn it to Jamie to recap our conversations.
There we go. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. Of course, we've spent a lot of time together talking about this topic, but definitely want to go over kind of a little bit of a trip down where we've been in this past year, talking in our conversations, a little bit of feedback we've received throughout that journey, and then indeed cover the two resolutions that will be before you today for your consideration. So again, you've seen this roadmap of where we've been in the last 6 months or so. We started this with really asking for that permission on an official level with you all to ultimately go and talk to the comptroller and TVA. We received, obviously, both of those reports as we presented them to you about our plans, receiving a stamp of approval from those regulatory authorities. In May, as you considered the minutes today, and appreciate everybody's involvement in our community coming out. You heard from our community about how they felt about our plans to enter the broadband service. And so as we sit here today, is the final step in that three-part step of this board's action that would allow us to enter into broadband services. So before you today will be a request for your approval and then a recommendation to City Council for their approval as well. All too often when we talk about broadband services, we really kind of, I won't say glaze over this particular part about the benefits to the electric utility. But at the end of the day, what we really need to emphasize here as KUB, as an electric division, is the future of our electric division really does rely on fiber. At the end of the day, regardless if we provide broadband services or not, we will be taking this communication network deeper in a more meaningful way into our system. As we've talked about at length with you all and with the community, there are applications that other utilities are using that KUB wants to be able to take advantage of to help both our system reliability and obviously ultimately to support the experience that our customers have on our system. And we've talked at length about our current FLICER pilot that we've been doing and the benefits of that, and we think that expansion of that really is a meaningful benefit to our customers in that particular regard. And on the horizon are a number of load applications, system efficiency applications, even customer benefit applications that we've talked about that we think, again, require that low latency, high-speed network in order to operate those type of applications.
Jamie, I think this slide is one that we really have to highlight because there is a huge disconnect between the public's perception of what benefit do I get if I am not a broadband customer. And you know, this summarizes it in a nutshell. But I think for some reason, this has gotten pushed to the side and hasn't been, you know, sort of focused on. And as we move forward, if we vote to move forward today, this has got to be front and center to our presentations.
And that was one of the points that I tried to make to Mr. Dingus when he raised the question the other night. No, and our response has to be no. Everybody starts benefiting from day one, every electric customer from day one. So it's not a benefit everybody's got to wait for.
No matter how hard we try,
That's
a lot
right.
of times.
That's right.
And I love talking about it. People say, yeah, but what about the broadband? And so it's difficult to get the headline space as it relates to our utility investments. And in many ways, that's a good thing. For years, KUB in the community, we almost want to be behind the shadows, so to speak, doing the things that enable our community, help our community grow. You know, Gabe loves to talk about, you know, substation transformer sizings, but nobody wants to listen about that either. But at the end of the day, especially with you all, you get it and you understand it, and you understand the prudent utility investments that we make every day. And in many cases, when this is discussed in public, it is glossed over. And so I do think that we need to continue, for those that will listen and for those that will engage in this. And honestly, in many ways, running the electric side of the utility, we're as excited about some of these opportunities as we are about broadband in that particular regard. And again, I'll highlight the beauty of the relationship between the broadband division and the electric division. If not but for broadband being a financing source for some of those investments, that electric ratepayer that we're talking about would ultimately pay more for those enhancements on the electric side. Again, at full build out at a 35% take rate, this becomes nearly a $30 million source of revenue from fiber customers that choose to utilize the broadband service as an opportunity for our electric customers to benefit in that regard. So again, a high-level benefit to them, but ultimately, the utility side benefit is key in that regard.
What does latency mean?
Latency is just the speed in which that spinning wheel of death is, in other words, the notion of you won't get that with a low latency system in that particular regard. The buffering, the waiting, the high-speed communication. And on the utility side, it's important for all of us on our Zoom calls and everything else, but on the utility side, it's absolutely critical. It's a safety issue. It's a communication issue. It allows those smart switches to be able to talk to each other and operate sub-second to where you won't see that outage that we've talked about.
Very good, thank you.
So, just from an overview again, you've seen this slide a number of times now in our meetings, but just to give you a feel for the financing around the Enhanced Grid Modernization program there, it is $702 million in electric system costs over the next 10 years. The bulk of that being capital. It'll be the fiber and the electronics and so forth and so on that would take to create that electric network in that particular regard. It includes both the full build out of that network along with what we see as the first cornerstone of our Enhanced Grid Mod program, which will be the full distribution of our automation technologies or our FLISR system in that regard. It also includes that startup loan that we've talked about that would help fund and seed the fiber division, $35 million up front to the fiber division. This is allowed by TVA. They reviewed that as part of their review and see that as not a large risk to our ratepayers in that particular regard. And again, the funding of this endeavor strikes that balance that we always do with our programs between rates, debt, and then probably one of unique particular aspect here is indeed that lease money, if you will, access money from the fiber division, from the broadband customers that would pay for access on that network as well. So if we break that $702 million down, again, you'll see there the bulk of that being capital, $67 million over the first 10 years to operate that network. You'll see the other details as it relates to the financing and debt. And then as expenses go up in the electric division, obviously our reserves have to increase as well too. So you'll see that line item there at the last, and that's what makes up that $702 million. So to finance that $702 million, we'll issue approximately $284 million in bonds. Approximately 28% of the costs will be raised by, again, the rate increases that we'll talk about just in a second. You'll see the access revenue there over that 10 years is projected to be $176 million. And then there's the loan, and we do pay interest on that loan. So at a prevailing interest rate, in which, again, TVA and the comptroller both have reviewed that particular interest rate, deem it to be appropriate. So in other words, everything in the electric perspective is kept whole in that regard. Fiber does pay its fair share by the expenses from the lease fees, as well as paying back that loan in a timely manner and with interest included as well. So about the electric rate increases, and in our public forums, obviously we've heard a lot about this. We've talked to our customers a lot about this, about the value proposition as it relates to this enhanced grid mod. As you recall, there were 6 1% rate increases in our current forecast. We have changed that to a little bit more and a little bit sooner, as we've talked about that there would be 3% rate increase, starting this year, effective in April 22, 23, and 24. That would be a little bit more and a little bit sooner, as we've talked about. Those rate increases not only fund this enhanced grid modernization, but also would have funded our existing Century 2 capital programs that this board is very well aware of. Noting there that, as we've talked about, the stability and the access revenue that comes back to the electric division as a funding source, Chattanooga EPB has stated that helps stabilize and help remove rate increases in their financial plan, and we are seeing that in ours as well too. And so per our 10-year plans as it stands now, these 3 rate increases will be the only rate increases inside of this particular 10-year plan. We've talked about, and you've seen the detail there, and we'll show on a chart next, that the impact of this incremental funding is about $3.60 on the average customer's bill. And again, I told you when those will be effective. They'll be effective April 2022, giving our customers plenty of time to accommodate and react to those additional increases.
Is the 360 a part of the fixed fee or in the usage charge?
Good segue to this chart. It is part of the usage. In that particular regard, as you'll see, very similar chart that Mark shared on the water increase. On the far left, on the first column, is KWH. Our average customer uses 1,100 KWH. Again, all of the increases, including our pre-planned our existing 6.1 percenters per our pledge, we're going to be as part of on the usage fee and not on the fixed customer charge. So as you use more, that will be a little bit more. As you use less, it'll be a little bit less. And so you'll see the current monthly bill here on the average at $117. The implementation of those 3% rate increases at full implementation would be $10.80. You can see the split in the next two columns. At the end of those 10 years, had we stuck with our original plan, that would have been $7.20 of that original plan. The incremental addition for this grid mod enhancement is $3.60. And again, you'll see the impacts in the three columns here. If you were to be using more or less, it will impact you in a different, more meaningful way, depending on which way you slide on that scale. I'll stop here and see if there's any other questions on the
No
rate
questions, but I
increase.
think as we think about rate increases and we think about the impact on low-income customers, I think it's important that we also couple that with conversations about the things that we have in place to support them, whether it's weatherization or other things. And so I think it's important that we also talk about that because while it's certainly to many of us seen as a nominal amount, to some people it could be substantial. And so we need to make sure that, you know, folks know, the community knows that we have some safeguards in place to protect and support our communities, particularly those who might be challenged to meet those needs.
Absolutely. I think continued conversations in that area today will specifically talk about on the broadband side of things, but this board is well aware of the commitments we've made and continue to make and need to expand to be sure those who indeed are having those issues. Absolutely.
And I think, I know I spoke with the mayor yesterday, and she and I spoke about that issue. She's, of course, 100% in favor of this, but she's conscious of the issue you just raised, Tybee, and I think the city is going to explore the options that it has to be able to assist those customers and to work toward maybe a better dialogue with those customers. I think the pandemic gave us an opportunity for Tiffany and her staff to really interact with customers and in a way that we maybe never had before to the great extent that we needed to. And I think that we need to continue those conversations, and hopefully through those we'll be able to get to a point where it's a win-win for everybody.
So that's a great point, and that continuing those conversations, and even after this happens, don't let it be a flashpoint, but really embed it into how we operate and continue to connect with and interact with and hear from those customers. So good point. Thank you.
So speaking of our customers, obviously you all have attended these meetings very well. I want to thank you for that. But what we have seen and heard from our customers in every aspect of our service territory is we have confirmed those suspicions of the digital divide. Either inadequate service, unavailable service, not meeting the needs that they have. We have heard loud and clear from our customers the plurality of the feedback that we've received. We have shared that with you. Have been asking us to please hurry up, please do this, please meet this need, please give us choice in that particular regard. Specifically for the two public meetings, great events in that particular regard. Again, not everybody there was for it, or maybe folks had questions or they were undecided, but I think that the feeling that we all got from there was overwhelming support in that particular regard. And again, we received over 300 unsolicited phone calls, mostly emails. I shouldn't say 300 phone calls, mostly emails, few phone calls in that regard. And even in that regard, if you tally up and try to say, how did they land in which column, over 90% of those were in support. We do continually talk with city administration, county administration, Union County, Granger County, and indeed, I think they see that there is a need in their communities for a broadband service, and we continue to receive great public support from those elected officials as well. And at every step, we obviously get a lot of questions. As we talk about trying to get the message out, trying to have folks engage, there are a lot of questions that get asked. You all were there to hear a lot of them, a lot of great Q&A at the Change Center this particular week. And at every step, we want to be as transparent as possible and get that word out. And so we have posted every question that has come up on our website, and we've heard feedback again that folks really appreciate that And that seems to be making a little bit of a headway there as far as trying to help folks understand our plans in that particular regard.
You all have done a really, really good job, and Jerry, you as well, in speaking at the forum that I attended. I didn't attend the first one, but I think you all, rather than sort of corporate speak, you have really tried to dig in, answer the questions, and engage with people. I've really been impressed by everybody from KUB with their level of being able to explain things in a way that even I can understand.
We appreciate that.
I'll piggyback off of what she just said. I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and we got on this topic of broadband. And she would love it, but I also explained to her, she asked about, was there any opposition, and kind of gave her a rundown of some of the questions that we had about, you know, if I'm not using it, you know, how does it benefit me? And that's one slide that Celeste pointed out, I think is really important. And for us maybe to start with that sometimes, how does it benefit me? That should be highlighted.
Right.
Because, and what I'm saying is that you guys have done an awesome job, because I was able to explain to her the benefit that she'll get if she chooses not to, to use the broadband that we provide. So I was able to explain something that is way over my head in layman's terms. So she got it, and so that's much appreciated to all of you.
Thank you.
That's great.
We just wanted to, again, put, you know, it's easier to convey to you sometimes what our customers are saying when you can see their actual quotes in that particular regard. I'll just leave the slide up here for a second to let you peruse a couple of those comments. But I would tell you that the words that you see on the screen are very representative, again, of that average opinion that we've been getting, which has been, you know, entirely positive, entirely exhibiting the issues and the choice that our customers have wanted. What we've told you through our research, we continue to see the desire for our customers wanting us to get into this service in that particular regard. So, switching gears a little bit from that electric view of the electric fiber network, you know, specifically the two resolutions that'll be before you today, establish a fiber division, so we'll talk a little bit of detail about that first. So again, a financially independent, self-sustaining fifth division of KUB. There can't be cross-subsidization between any of the divisions. As I've told you before, we're pretty good at that. We already operate 4 divisions. We're used to running a financial structure that allows for allocated funds and the ability for us to keep our books separate in that particular regard. The services that are as part of that plan, you've heard about them a lot. A couple key points there is that notion of symmetrical. It's probably become your favorite word as you do talk to your friends. You have to explain what symmetrical is now. My mission's been achieved. But at the end of the day, that is a meaningful difference, because folks ask us why is your service going to be different? And that really is one of those key differences, that those upload speeds and download speeds will be equal. Again, as part of that, some folks need assistance and help. We will offer a service for that for fee to basically take care of everything in their home if they want to in that particular regard. And then also something that we often gloss over too, because we focus on the internet and so many important things about that internet service, is a lot of times we gloss over the fact that we will be offering other services like that triple play, like many of us have in our homes, with television and voice if they do desire that as well. We do think it'll add about 200 permanent KUB jobs. That was one of the questions asked at the forum the other night that I haven't made clear. Those are not just ramp up jobs that would peak at a point and then kind of disappear. Those would be the employees that live and work in that division, just like many of us work in the 4 divisions of KUB today. Obviously, during the build-out, there'll be many, many other employees that help, contractors and so forth and so on. It'll be much larger than 200 to create this network inside of 7 years. And so there's other economic benefit to Knoxville beyond just those employees that KUB would provide or employ. The plan does include additional facilities. Obviously, we have a great facility here at the Hoskins campus, but we may be a little bit out of room in that particular regard, and we may be looking to purchase, acquire, build additional facilities as well. And the plan that we have before you does include that, along with, again, we've talked about the functions that we don't necessarily utilize day to day today, which is marketing and sales. As many have pointed out, this will be a competitive environment, and as such, we've included those dollars in our budget as well. questions about the fiber division? I know we've talked at length at other times about it.
A question came up that I think is important because it speaks to our culture. But I asked Gabe the question, are we contemplating having a head of each division? And that's just not the way we do things at KUB. We may have to do that at some point, but right now, everybody will continue to work on at the executive level, everybody will be working for all 5 utilities if we pass this. I think that's good.
So as we think about creating the fiber division, I've been thinking about a few things that are going to be critical for me if I support this. Is number one, as we build this out, let's make sure that we think about women and minority-owned businesses. I think this gives us an opportunity to really, not just talk about how we serve our low-income customers, but also how we contribute to the economic vitality of those communities. And so as we build out, I think it's important that we really look at some intentionality as much as we can about utilizing women and minority-owned businesses. The other thing is, I think as we think about employment, I know we've had some conversations with TCAT and others, but I think we need to really think about creating some MOUs or LOI, letters of intent, LOIs, with those to show that there's a commitment to local jobs and not only employment, but also creating that pathways. Teamwork is an absolutely great vehicle that we could possibly do that. But even thinking about what we do with the Magnet High School, the high school, that Career Magnet Academy, what we do with TCAT, so that we can start to create a pathways for folks, particularly those who may not have seen KUB as a viable place of employment for them. So it's important that we do that. And then the other thing I would say is we have to continue to talk about these. We're going to have local jobs. Celeste, point well taken. Local customer service. So that's going to be really important as we think about the fiber division. I really need some assurances that for me that those things will be taken into consideration as we roll this out.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
Well, I've certainly voiced concerns in past meetings, so I thought I might just kind of comment on that. Starting a new utility obviously is no small endeavor. And as a public fiduciary, I felt like it was important to ask a lot of questions and push for answers. And I think when first sort of thinking about this topic, I had a worry about hardwiring what I felt like was a 20-year-old technology when in other parts of the world, they're not doing that. But digging in, I think what I've discovered is that the technology is not necessarily the pipe. It's what's on either end of the pipe.
Right.
And as EPB and other utilities have, over the years, have changed out the technology on either end of it, and that the technology, the hard wiring part is what's going to make the electric division more reliable. And so that, in my mind, sort of changed things. And I think the other thing I learned is that there are collateral benefits of hardwiring this technology just are so far-reaching, more than I ever really realized when I kind of got into the process. And I started thinking about an analogy might even be the Tennessee Valley Authority. Back in the 30s when that was, we're hundreds of billions of dollars over the years have been invested, and you try to calculate the return on investment, and that would take years of the entire university trying to study. So I think there are a lot of collateral benefits. Some of it we can't even measure, and I think the reality is that the existing incumbents are not likely to invest in certain parts of our customer area. They're just probably never going to. And those folks have tremendous needs that we might be able to fulfill. So I think in the end, any endeavor like this has an inherent risk. You're talking about $700 million of investment. But I think my conclusion has been that this is a worthwhile one, and I think we've done a good job weighing out the risks and the opportunities. So thank you to everybody. So I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
John, I'd like to say, I think I speak for everybody. To the degree you felt uncomfortable asking any of those questions, we all appreciate it. And as your friend and as a colleague on this board, I have to tell you, hard questions are sometimes hard to ask, especially in the public. And so my hat's off to you. Nothing but respect, and I appreciate your being willing to ask those hard questions. And all of us have asked some hard questions, so I appreciate that as well.
And I'll echo that, iron sharpens iron. And to the extent our public has asked us tough questions, and commissioners have as well too, our plans have gotten better and better, and I will say that we're not done. Again, a lot of the I don't want to be presumptuous and say we will ultimately be approved, but as we do pivot towards implementation, there are plans still to be developed in that particular regard. And so the many things that were being brought up about being intentional about a lot of things, we will be doing those type of things as well too. And there's still time to mold and operate this the way this board wants it to be operated in that regard. As we pivot to take a look at funding that will be coming down the pike, funding recommendations, assuming again approval is made, that as Mark mentioned in a budget presentation this year, there would be an amended budget coming before this board. We anticipate that in August, again, if our approval cycle is what we think it is. That would increase the fiscal year 22 budget that you just approved. It would amend it, increasing it by approximately $40 million. It would be an authorization of a total of $65 million in bonds for this year, fiscal year. You would see the first reading of those 3% rate increases in August, and then we would actually adopt the first budget of the fiber division at approximately $5 million for that year to get started. So that was a little preview of what is coming in August, and not presented for your consideration today, though. So at the end of the day, too, we also have a resolution before you as well about our low-income internet program. Again, this is a first key step in that regard. A lot of details are still coming out and will be fleshed out about this particular program, but in concept, we think this is a meaningful way to codify our commitment to this program, as well as, in this particular case, the city's commitment to that. It will have to be, in part, developed with public and private funding sources in mind. As we've told you all, this program is really created and mirrored after Electric Power Board of Chattanooga's Ed Connect program. The criteria that they have is that kids that are on free or reduced lunch get internet service. We've already, in our conversations with community leaders, have received great feedback about this program, but also, again, feedback about what criteria might be applicable there. So, again, that is yet to be determined. It is not part of this particular agreement. It says that the city and KUB will work together in partnership to strike those balance about the details of the program. We want the program to be available to the most people. At the same point in time, we don't want it so arduous that it's hard to get, but we need to strike a balance with what funding is indeed available. And so we're getting great feedback from community leaders who work in this space. Inside of this agreement, it does authorize the President and CEO to enter into a interlocal agreement with the city. And then again, it would be effective July 1 of 2022. As we basically like our first customers, hopefully in that calendar year, we would come alongside with this program, assuming funding is there. Looks like you had a question.
I do.
All right, good.
So as I think about, if we think about EPB, I'm not sure about what their territory is, but is there an opportunity to consult with other governmental entities that we serve to do something similar with those? Because right now we're only talking about those in the jurisdictional limits of Knoxville. So even if you're right outside of the city limits, or if you're in one of our contiguous counties that we serve, this doesn't affect them.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us, in that some we've already had some great initial conversations with. It's just more today willing to commit that the city is who has been able to as part of this ultimate first step. Great conversations have occurred with the city or county as well too. That'll be probably the next step in that particular regard. But obviously, we serve parts of 7 surrounding counties. And so I think there'll have to be then that next step of talking to the Union County, Granger County, Sevier County mayors and saying, for those KUB customers that live in that area, who would obviously want this service, and we want to serve those customers in the same way we serve those that are part of this agreement, will have to work there. So again, that's why I say this is a first meaningful step that we're there, but there's a lot of work yet to be done.
Would you have to come back to the board to have us approve each one of those agreements? Or is there a flexible provision that can be included that would give some latitude to the KUB management to enter into those type of agreements?
Yes, Commissioner. The resolution 1440, or whatever it is, does have a provision that would authorize the president and CEO to enter into this agreement with the city and agreements with other governmental entities as well. So the flexibility is here. We would not have to come back other than just to, maybe have a president's report on what we're doing.
Good. Any other questions on the program there? We're excited about this. We think this can help those issues that we're talking about. Again, I think we really tip our hat to Chattanooga and Hamilton County, or Chattanooga City proper, because there's really not a program that provides for this robust and this wide of a service. I believe Chattanooga Times 3 Press said that they were serving approximately 1/3 of the district students with this program. It came out in the paper this week in Chattanooga, and that's just incredible that those kids are getting this level of internet in their homes. And obviously we know that benefits beyond just the children in these programs, the families that are part of those homes as well too. That's very meaningful in that regard. So presented for your consideration is 1439 today. I'll just review the two resolutions and in my comments and be available for any more questions. But 1439 is the resolution that would authorize KUB to provide broadband services to the fullest extent provided by law and consistent with city charter. It requests city council authorization for KUB, well, I just told you that. At the same point in time, it requests city council to allow that, excuse me. And then it does establish the fiber division as an entity after city council's approval as well. So that's 1439. 1440 will be the establishment of the low-income community internet program. It requests city council authorize the city to enter into that interlocal cooperative agreement with us to provide funding for that. And then again, as Mark just mentioned, it does provide authority for President and CEO to enter into other similar agreements as we get those worked out as well. So those are the two resolutions.
Question, this may be the height of ignorance, but the fiber is really the building block for the electric power grid.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th division is really a broadband division,
That's correct.
but we're referring to it as a fiber division?
Yes. Very, very unique and distinguishing factor of our broadband is that it's built upon fiber. And so much like, and we'll entertain a motion to change the name of the division.
I just figured there's always a reason for what y'all do. I just wondered, because it's
that,
pretty confusing to me and to the public when really the 5th division is broadband.
Right.
The fiber is to enhance the electric grid.
And we probably need to settle on something and then ultimately get consistent, because I will refer to it interchangeably as well. So sure. In many cases, we've really just kind of followed what others have done and called it a fiber division, but it's the broadband service on the fiber division. So indeed, we may want to
We have active debates about whether it should be A or B.
You're hitting some nerves. No, I'm just kidding. That's right.
Okay.
But those are the two resolutions. I'm available for any other questions, but I will turn it back over to President Bowles.
Thank you, Jamie. I want to have some closing comments and then answer any questions. But if you go back about 16, 18 months, the first question you asked us and we asked ourselves is why? Why do we need to do this? Why are we looking into this? For years we said we weren't going to do this, and that was the correct thing to think at that time. I will say that. But what has changed? Well, the pandemic is showing us what's changed. Our customers need it. The customers have asked for it. Our electric folks said we need it for the electric reliability and sustainability of our systems. Our financial folks have found a plan and developed a plan, you've seen it, that not only helps us today but stabilizes our rates for years to come. And our regulators, TVA and the state comptroller, said you've got great plans, the best they've seen in some cases. So we've answered the question why. And so I can't say enough about the hurdles we've overcome, the questions we've answered. We have not found a reason why not to do this. We have not found that reason. And so I consider it's very important. It's a very big step that KUB is talking about taking. we're in the home stretch, but we're not done yet. And so I can't say enough about how much I appreciate my staff and your questions and the public's questions along this path. And so I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and looking forward to your vote. But we got a lot of work ahead of us if it's approved. So thank you for all the effort and allowing us to do this.
Three things I'd like to say. First, I cannot express to you how much I appreciate the good work of the staff. It's really been amazing, and it just reinforces everything we thought about you before, that you're innovative, you're intelligent beyond measure, you care about the public and serving our customers. And I think I probably reversed that in terms of what's most important, but I really appreciate that. Two other comments. I assume that we would, if we're successful, well, if Congress can find a way to come up with an infrastructure bill, we will be applying for that money. And if we're successful, and this is exactly the kind of project that I would assume would be of interest to them, we'll need to come back. That budget will change significantly, I assume, if we get $700 million that we're going to have to account for through the methods that you mentioned. If we get every $100 million we get from the feds is going to, or the state is going to drop that number. Is that correct?
The budget could change potentially if the funding was available that caused us to accelerate expenditures.
Okay.
Other than that, the budget wouldn't change. What would change is the funding, aspect of it would change, which could, over the first several years, depending upon the magnitude of what we might receive, then, the amount of bonds you issue could change, and potentially, for example, if like EPB got $110 million in 2009, if we received $110 million, tomorrow, then we would certainly rethink those 3% rate increases. They wouldn't all go away by any stretch, but there would be an impact. Yeah.
Good. I was assuming that, and it just lowers the burden on our current customers, which is good. And then I know you already know this, but just for the record, we have made a solemn promise to the underserved communities that as we decide the schedule for rollout, that one of our highest priorities will be to take care of the least of these. And so as we work toward coming up with a schedule, a rollout schedule, I hope that will continue to be something. That's the heart part. The head part is what we've talked about up to this point, but the heart part is really about taking care of the least of these. So please keep that in mind.
I think that rollout is going to be something that we as a board will really need to be on top of, because that's going to be a source of questions that each of us is going to receive from various people. And the magic of KUB and your personnel is your level of communication with us as board members. We never feel that we're uninformed about anything, but that's something that I think that I know you're conscious of it, but you may even be more conscious, because as we interact with the public, that's going to be the question of where are you now, what is your timetable, what neighborhood is coming first. So I think we're all singing off the same book and page. We just need to make sure we sing in unison.
And as the parameters and qualifications for the low-income portion of the program, we're going to need to know, probably something you're going to inform us, but qualifications and that kind of thing, I hope the conversation continues so that we can have, because that's some of the feedback that I will be getting is, how do I qualify? What are the,
Other questions or comments from board?
Real quick, I remember hearing that even 5G needs fiber to run. Will our fiber network be available to 5G companies to lease to build out their system?
we've always said that there'll be opportunities to light services for other commercial entities. And so I think the shortest way to say is we would entertain that, obviously, in that particular regard. A lot of times, for whatever reason, for-profit entities want their own fiber and their own network. We haven't quite figured that out. That's kind of how we've gotten to here to start with, is
Right.
partnerships don't generally materialize.
Right.
But we're always open to a hopeful opportunity that benefits the community in that particular regard.
The follow-up was, I assumed if there was, infrastructure bill that did materialize, that a community broadband project like ours would most likely, you would hope, have some priority.
Mhm.
But the incumbents who are building out now, they would also qualify for infrastructure, potentially, grants?
Historically, there are a number of different pathways, and the shortest answer is that there are paths that they would qualify on as well. RDOF funding through the FCC, they've been successful nationwide, I'm talking about not necessarily in our area, of getting grants themselves, the charters, the TDSs, the Comcast, the AT&Ts. Current discussions, as we understand it at a state level, and even more at a federal level, that the notion is that municipals, co-ops, and so forth have somewhat of a preference in those deals. And a lot of these programs are matching dollars. So you're hearing where, in this case, for instance, to get state funding, if we were to get $4 million in funding, we would have to put up $2 million ourselves. And so a governmental entity has to come to the table, as I understand it, to provide some of those matching funds. But the long answer is to say, indeed, I think we'd all be going after those dollars. It'd be a competitive endeavor to see who can get the grants.
Sure. And I would imagine, too, there'd be some caveats in the funding that they would need to go into underserved areas and empowerment zones that they may not be
Today, so
interested
far,
in
a lot
going
of
into.
so today, a lot of the discussion has been on underserved populations as deemed by the FCC. A lot of those are deemed rural, so that's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep, a couple things. You all have said most of what I had on my notes. Commissioner Ward, you really made me think a lot about this early on, as this is a pretty substantial endeavor for us. I think as a member of this board, who only has a couple years left on this board, I think this is probably one of the most significant decisions that I will at least participate in as a member of this board. So it did give me a lot of, I did do a lot of thinking and praying about this decision. I will tell you, it's a lot of money, and I think we have to be really, really strategic about how we go about this process, because it's a significant investment, and we have to be ready to pivot and ready to switch if we have to. And I think that was something that Commissioner Wharton really made me think about as we were thinking about the significant investment. The other thing I had on my list was we had to be transparent. Every step of the way, we have to be transparent, letting folks know where we are in the process, how decisions are made, how we roll this thing out. That is utmost important. The flexibility piece goes along with that. We got to be flexible, and we can't. Sometimes I've seen people who may go down a road and, sometimes are too prideful to say, hey, maybe I need to take a step back or slow down. And I think we need to be flexible in that realm. And then the last thing I'll say that is important is this better be some good service. Like, we're talking about doing this and providing a better service. It better be a better service. So, if it, at some point in year 7, when it finally gets to my neighborhood, because I've seen the secret map. I'm in the Latin. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't even say that.
I'm just kidding.
I would like the
For the
record.
record, Commissioner Small was kidding.
That is a joke.
I would like the record to show there is no secret map.
I just created it myself. No, but in all seriousness, I do it needs to be good service. I think that we talk about the will of depth. I mean, for some folks that is critical. That could mean the difference between employment and non-employment, education for their kids, telehealth, all of these things. And so just make sure this is good service and it's a reliable service. So those are the things that I had on my list that hadn't been said already.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from commissioners?
Just a quick comment. I just want to add my thank you to everybody on staff for all the work that you've done on this and the way that you've gotten the information, not only to us, but to the public, because I think that has made a really big difference in how this whole project has been perceived up until this point in time. And it has put me at a great comfort level because I know you all have done your homework and I've seen the results of that, and I really do appreciate that. As we go forward, you know, and start going through this is something that not a one of us sitting here has ever seen, is the establishment of a new division. And there's going to be a lot of work and effort that's going to go forward. And I think it's going to be critical for us to keep that same level of information flow, and I think that's what we're all going to be looking for as we go forward, and you know what the public's going to be looking for. So thank you for what you've done, and I'm looking forward to seeing the same great quality product as we go forward in the future.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on Resolution 1439 on first and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
You get the motion and second. Any other questions or comments from the board? I understand we have one person from the community who would like to speak. Ms. Gill?
Good morning, and I don't know that I can say anything that you all haven't said already, but I know you have heard from Mayor Kincannon in the past, and I'm really here this morning just to put on the official record that the City of Knoxville administration, the mayor, and our team is behind you 100% as you make this really important decision for our community. I have witnessed and gotten to see in action the public process that you have run for this, and have been very impressed by the thoughtful approach, the very intentional approach, the transparency, the patience, really trying to help our community understand what this decision is about. And I have never been to a public meeting where the overwhelming support was so clear as it was in that meeting that you held over on Clinton Highway. I think we in public service deal with so many issues, and oftentimes it's trying to see how we can make two opposing sides happy in the middle. We're not in the middle, y'all. You are 100%, I mean, 90% public comment. I mean, that's unheard of in public process these days. But we really think that this is a good thing for our community, and I really appreciate that. You know, I want to emphasize as I watch this process unfold, even this morning, that, you know, when we recognize that the role of internet as now a utility for individuals and businesses, it's not an option, it's a need. I'm really just so profoundly grateful that we have the public power model and the public utility model to leverage for this service here in Knoxville. I think it's clear from the analysis that you all have brought to this process and the staff has brought to this process that, you know, the judicious approach, the pragmatic approach, the you know, drive to be a steward of public taxpayer dollars has really shown through, and I applaud you for that. And when I look at the obligation to serve that comes with your role as a public utility, that is going to be critical, because that is what has been lacking under the other models that are out there now. And so I think bringing that obligation to serve each and every home is such a critical resource for our community and those around us, you know, everyone in your service territory. And the other point that really shines through with this process is the public local accountability, and the fact that you as board members are residents of our community. You're not shareholders in New York. You are members and neighbors, and that is so important when we're dealing with such a critical infrastructure utility as broadband. So I thank you for that, because I think, as Ms. Herbert mentioned, this is going to be a lot of work for you and for staff, but we really appreciate your willingness to take that on, because I think when we look at what this has done for other communities, what we think it's going to do for Knoxville, and especially those areas around us, we cannot underscore enough the benefits that are going to come to our neighboring communities as well as Knoxville. So I appreciate you for that. Just to emphasize, I know you have another vote to make this morning. We are so excited and, again, really appreciate KUB's leadership in thinking around the impacts to low-income customers. So very excited to work with you on the low-income community internet program. we will be there walking aside you as we take that vote to council as well. So really excited about both of those elements, and then specifically look forward to working with you about ways we can continue weatherization investment and other ways to just reduce not only the financial burden of broadband to those who may not be able to afford it, but the whole affordability of utilities in general at the home level. So we very appreciate that, and excited to see this investment in families and education and health, in our healthy economy move forward this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the city's support. Are there any other members of the public who want to speak on this resolution? Seeing none, we have a motion from soon-to-be Dr. Small and a second from Ms. Herbert, and I'm putting the heat on you. You got to get that dissertation done.
JD, Jerry.
Well, and you made it. You did it. I'm sorry, you are a doctor, and I apologize for it. When the legislature made all the lawyers doctors, it was a good thing. But all right, Mr. Coley, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Askew.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Commissioner Warden.
Aye.
Resolution 1439 is passed unanimously.
Wonderful. I'll entertain now a motion for Resolution 1440 on first and final reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second? All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any members of the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, Mr. Coley.
Commissioner Askew.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Commissioner Warden.
Aye.
Resolution number 1440 is passed unanimously.
Everybody take just a moment and appreciate what's happened this morning. I think it's a wonderful thing for our community. Mr. Bolus.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Previously, you granted KUB authority to enter into a long-term agreement with Tenergy if the market conditions were right. We have now entered into that agreement, and I want to introduce Wayne Brittenall. He's part of our Rates and Analytical Services Group to give you an update on this effort.
Thank you, Mr. Bolus. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
As you'll remember, in December, Mr. Bolin came to the board with Resolution 1429, which authorizes KUB to participate in a long-term natural gas transaction. Tenergy issued bonds to prepay for natural gas. They did that through Morgan Stanley. The prepay allows Tenergy to sell to KUB and others at a discount. And the term is for up to 31 years, and the reason we needed the board authorization because it's outside of the normal 6-year framework that we have for gas contracts. The contract was finalized on April 20th, and the gas flow for this transaction starts on November 1st, just in time for winter heating season. This is roughly 10% of our supply, with 2,800 decatherms per day. It's a sculpted contract, so it has a little more in the winter, 2,800 a day on the shoulder months, preheating and post-heating, and then less in the summer during storage injection season. The discount that we got in this transaction is 30 cents per decatherm, which is significant. Right now, a decatherm of gas trades for about $3, so it's a 10% discount. That's a fixed discount. This is 30-year, over the term of the 30-year life of the contract, KUB ratepayers will save $9 million. The good news is all of the savings for this will be passed through our purchase gas mechanism to all of our natural gas customers. So with that, I'll take any comments or questions you might have.
Comments or questions? Well done. That's a significant discount for our customers.
Yeah, Commissioners, I would just add that, as we've approached this is we've sort of likened it to putting our toe in the water on this. As Wayne pointed out, it's approximately 10% of our supply, so we'll be looking for other opportunities for this. Because as you mentioned, the savings can be significant, and those all flow through directly to our customers. So we may be back again sometime for other such transactions.
Very good, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, Commissioners, before we close today, I do want to have Tiffany give you some good news and some updates to share with you all.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just wanted to give an update on the CURE program. If you guys recall, back in October, you all approved us to make an adjustment to the purchase power agreement for us to be able to use that TVA pandemic credit to assist customers. So we did establish a program in December with CAC and started marketing the program in January. And since that time, we've served over 9,000 customers with utility bill payment relief. Most of those customers have been residential. About 8,800 of them were residential, but about 265 have been small and mid-sized businesses. And so there weren't very many programs for businesses. And so it's just great to know that those 9,000 individuals, families, and business owners had some relief during this time. So I appreciate you guys for approving us to put the program in place, and we're excited about that. About $6.2 million is what's been utilized to help those 9,000 people. We have about $300,000 left, and so we'll continue to serve people as those requests come in and the needs come in. So just wanted to let you all know that the program, we feel like, has been a success. So thank you so much for approving our ability to do that. Another bit of good news we received this week is TVA, through its Home Uplift program, provides funding for weatherization. And you all know we partner with them on weatherization funds. And we heard today that they are increasing their contributions to the program. And so now the total that they'll provide in this fiscal year is a little over $900,000. So that's great. That makes our total contribution for this year about $3.3 million, which feels great to have additional funds, especially as we're talking about going into another service and wanting to provide opportunity to make bills more affordable for customers. And we know weatherization is a great way to do that. So we're really excited and thankful for TVA. And just to kind of put that in perspective, the Department of Energy also has a weatherization program that runs in Knox County, Blount County, Loudoun, and Roane counties. Over the last 3 years, there's been about a $1.5 million investment. So ours doubles that with this commitment from TVA, KUB's investment, and then the investment from our customers. We also have a grant right now from TDEC. So we're really excited about that. So just wanted to share the good news.
There aren't very many businesses who work hard to sell less of their product. But KUB is one of them, and I'm proud of that. Gabe, other comments?
I've got one last announcement that I just added to the agenda that you have not seen. So I do want to share some news with you. So after 42 years of service, from a person who started by climbing in attics and doing home weatherization back in the late 70s, Eddie Black has announced his retirement from KUB. I am happy. KB is happy for him. I am not happy, but in all seriousness, he is a person of very few words, but when he speaks, they're very profound. Very intelligent person who has always got great advice for me and for our staff and for KUB, and works really well with our customers. As you know, he heads up a key division of our company, the IT and security divisions. Given the nature of the broadband decisions we got to make, we're going to hold off making any changes right now. And so when we get that further along this next month, I'll be coming back with you with a new organizational plan with his replacement and maybe a restructuring of the whole the whole company in some degree. But his last day is August 2nd. And since that's not, our next board meeting is not till after that, I wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And we wish the best for Eddie. He's been, like I said, he's been a solid backbone to me personally and to the company for a long time. And I want to wish him well, but make you all aware of that. So that's my question.
With the caveat that I was going to suggest that if everybody were to applaud, it wasn't because we're happy you're leaving.
I've had that reaction. I just want to say what an honor and privilege it's been to work at KUB for the last 42 years. One of the, was this still in the works? Okay. One of the the reasons KUB's been so successful over the years is the board members such as yourselves. I remember telling Commissioner Caballero during her orientation that she was the 36th board member I've had the pleasure of working with during my career. And your governance, your leadership, your oversight has just been invaluable to us, and it's just really a key part of KUB's success. And a great example of that is what happened earlier today, the decision to proceed with broadband. It's a decision that's going to serve our community and our customers well for hopefully decades to come. I'd also like to acknowledge other members of senior staff. These are not only the best leaders that I've ever worked with, they're the finest people that I've ever known. So I really do appreciate that. KUB's in great hands moving forward. There'll be a lot more opportunities for goodbyes over the next 6 weeks, but I just wanted everyone to know how much I've enjoyed working with you.
It is no surprise to any of us that in response to our acknowledgement of your service, you would shine a light on everybody else. And that is just so very typical of you. We appreciate that so much. So thank you, and we will all look forward to having opportunities to say goodbye in a more formal way. So thank you. Mr. Bolus, anything else? All right, are there any members of the public who'd like to speak to us today who haven't signed up previously? Okay, so Commissioners, before we close today, I want to thank you for adjusting your schedules today so that we could attend the Martin Luther King Jr. luncheon today. We will be recognized, KUB will be recognized as a diversity champion, and that's something, of all the awards we've gotten over the years since I've joined this board, that one is perhaps more meaningful to me than any other. So, and I think a lot of us feel that way. So congratulations to the staff, the good work of the staff for making this, this possible, and to my fellow board members. So I look forward to seeing us all at lunch, and if there's no further business, the meeting's adjourned. Hey, great job, all of us. Fun.